Cool. Hi everyone. Good to see all of you here. We'll be kicking things off today with a presentation discussion about the challenges that people tend to face in a club environment, and hopefully give you a few takeaways you can take back to your clubs or your future clubs. First of all, a quick intro about both of us. So we work in a customer success team here at Statsbomb, and in our job we get to support the data implementation of clubs. My name is Antoine. I actually used to be a coach, and I moved slowly into data analysis. Today I work mostly with clubs in Europe, especially in French-speaking countries, and more in Africa.
And my name is Martha. Welcome, everybody. I come more from a mathematical background and love for the sport, so that's exactly how I got to combine them both with Statsbomb. I oversee mostly in the customer success team all the women's clubs and all the Latin American and Spanish-speaking, also like Portugal, Brazil, so all of those. And yeah, it's just an amazing job, and we get to talk to them and know what they're struggling with every day.
Cool, so here's the game plan for today. First of all, we'll speak about the common challenges we've identified. We've got a few findings based on our talks and a little bit of research we've done.
And then we're going to go look at the practical implications of this. What are the quick wins? And then how can you use this if you work in a club?
Okay, so let's go into the common challenges we've identified. And the main one that's the most commonly cited is going to be time. Time is obviously a fundamental constraint for an analyst in a club. And it's not just about the games coming in thick and fast and the schedules being busy. It's about sometimes structural limitations. Martha, you've had a lot of experience with Latin American clubs. How does time play into this?
Yeah, definitely. In Latin America, time is a massive constraint because of the distance that the clubs have to travel. So, for example, you have Brazil, which is a huge country. Then you also have international competitions, like, for example, the New Leagues Cup between Mexico and the US. So there was actually a thing that happened that annoyed a lot of Mexican clubs. So the Mexican clubs had to travel every time they had to play in America. And they were traveling double the time and distance that the American clubs were. So this annoyed a lot of customers in Mexico as well. I think there's different rules now. But imagine being an analyst at these clubs. You have to do a post-match report, you have to do a position analysis, and all of these playing leagues games, cup games, international competitions. So time is a very, very big thing for this analyst, especially if you add something else, like, for example, staff changes. I think you have seen some examples of this as well.
Yeah, exactly. So we've actually we've taken a sample of clubs over the last 18 months, which corresponds more or less to the year and a half managers tend to be in jobs. And in that sample, we've seen that almost half of the clubs changed managers at least once. And it's not just about managers and coaching staff changing, it's also about higher level stuff. So sporting directors, CEOs, those change quite often. That actually happen 90% of the clubs sampled. And we see also ownership changes. That happened to 8% of the clubs we sampled. So whether it's a coaching staff change or a higher level change, these are things that can send you back to the drawing board as an analyst. And we really can see that even though analysts are often people who stay longer in their clubs, continuity in their work is going to be a rare commodity.
Yeah, definitely. I think in South America especially, Latin America, Mexico, you see managers change so much. There's no Pep Guardiolas or clubs staying for more than 7 years for sure. So every time there's a new analyst in these clubs, they have to learn how they use the data, how the sporting director likes it, if there's a new coach liking it. So there's definitely a very time constraint in this, and that's where the customer success team comes in sometimes, and we also help them do this faster for sure. There's of course other challenges as well, so we're going to the next one now.
Yeah, the next one is around communication, and communication is absolutely critical. Today, it's quite clear that a lot of clubs are attracted to the potential of data analysis and what it can bring to the club. But it's not just about bringing data, it's about effectively communicating it to see results. And Martha, would you have some good examples of that for us?
Yeah, so doing the data, and like you're going to see a lot of smart people here in the research stage, doing the analysis, manipulating the data, getting some insights. It's the part that you probably love if you are a data scientist or a data analyst. But then the hard part is actually communicating that and getting the buy-in from the sporting director, the head of recruitment, the coach, even the assistants, because sometimes they don't speak the same language, even if it's English or German or whatever language it is, but having to communicate maths or insights to football people that sometimes they don't trust you is super, super hard.
Yeah, I think you've nailed it. That's something we've seen quite often, some very, very good findings, but if they're not communicated in an effective way, the end result is going to be quite limited. So it's really about knowing who you're speaking to, knowing your audience. Are you speaking to a coach, a scout, a board member, a player? We see this, and how you bring that information in a way that aligns with their priorities.
For sure. I think a lot of people have said it, and like as I said, the people behind the screen, sometimes they call them the football nerds, and it's so hard to get the buy-in from the sporting directors or the coaches. And if you want them to use the data, and if you want them to trust the process, you have to be able to communicate it in the right way.
The next issue we won't talk about is something we've called keeping it real. And today, I think you would have all seen it. There's been, in the last few years, really an explosion in the number of metrics, of data points you can have, and potentially thousands of different KPIs you can use. Well, as analysts, this is really good for us and can really help us doing some more detailed work. It does come with a risk of overcomplicating.
Oh, for sure. In Statsbomb, for example, we collect over 3,000 events per game. Some people think like, oh, it's just passes and shots and stuff, but 3,000 events per game is a lot. So it can get very complicated at times if you don't know what you're looking for. Something I always tell the customers when they're getting onboarded is like, if you have the right questions, there's the data for you to find them. So it's just about having the right questions and knowing where to look, because definitely can get very complicated. We have a very specific example, like very easy set pieces. It's something that is growing lately. So if you want to know specifically, like where is the data going, where are the defenders getting the first contact, then you can go to the data, look at it, and then get KPIs from it or get an insight and take decisions from there.
Yeah, the set piece example is a great, it's typically a great example of a quick win you can get. A couple of other examples we have here, like post-match analysis. Did we perform above, below the level of expectations? Can we go beyond the noisy match-by-match analysis and analyze performance in cycles, in blocks of games, rather than on an individual match? And can we understand performance beyond the scope of just winning or losing? Same in recruitment. The number of metrics can help us identify first the key metrics that matter to us, but also monitor the progress of a player over a lengthier period of time. And that can only lead to better informed decisions in recruitment at the end of the day.
Definitely. And I think everybody here has watched Moneyball. I think that's how everybody started and everybody's here. And if you haven't, I really recommend it. But it's really not of, I'm using data, why am I not winning trophies? Why am I not like first in the league? Why am I not recruiting the next 7 wonder kids? It's just not about using the data. It's just how you use it, who is using it, what workflows do you have. So I had a really special talk with some Brazilian customers in a webinar that is on YouTube. And they mentioned an example that I really liked, because it's if you have a physical therapist in your team and he or she didn't recover your player in that moment, you're just going to fire that physical therapist and get a new one, but you're not going to stop believing in physical therapy. So the same is with data. Not because you didn't win that tournament or that data didn't work doesn't mean it's the data's fault. It's how you used it, what data are you using, and what workflows you have in place. So yeah, it's just a trust and process.
Yeah, I love that example. So let's now talk a little bit about practical implications and what we've observed, what we've identified over clubs at different stages of their data journey. Yeah,
so we have some countries that have invested really highly in data, and you wouldn't believe it, because there's like, for example, South America, Brazil, I mentioned it before, and I love this market because people actually do a lot of research and they use a lot more data. We have the Netherlands and we have France as well, that they are doing a lot in data because they have to get players that other people are looking for. So you know the Premier League, you know La Liga, you know the best teams in the world are looking for Brazilians, Dutch people, French players. So they have to do something different. They have to do something that gets an edge, and they can find these players first. So then they can develop them, and then they can sell them for a much, much higher price. So it's definitely something I really, really like. But that also comes with some risks. So I think, Antoine, you have some examples of these risks.
Yeah, definitely. When with clubs that have high levels of investment and higher levels of analysis, these are things that require more time, more resources. And one of the issues we're facing a lot now with clubs that have been using data for a while is going to be around automation. How can our KPIs be monitored effectively, automated? Can I turn up to the office on a Monday or a Tuesday morning and have the numbers that matter to us readily available? So that's something we're seeing a lot. Something else is going to be around knowledge sharing. Once we have those numbers that we care about, can we make sure that they don't stay siloed within our analysis department and go through to the scouts, the coaches, and that different people in various departments can use those effectively? At the end of the day, there's a large investment to justify, and if we don't communicate those findings effectively, then that might be reviewed.
Yeah, definitely. I think everybody here knows data, or quality data is not cheap. So there's going to be a high investment as well. If you're hiring a software engineer, if you're hiring a person that does some coding for you, and it's also a mathematician, we have PhD people over there as well. So it's not going to be a cheap investment, and you definitely have to show the measurable aspects of it. How can you measure that it's actually working and that this investment is worth it? So communication also comes into that as well, as in you're doing all this investment, communicate and show your impact.
Something else we've noticed in the last few years is there's definitely a rise in demand for highly qualified analysts or data scientists at club level, and that's not something that happens just in the top leagues. It's something I've definitely observed in places like Central Europe, more and more in Africa. I think you probably have seen it in Brazil and Mexico, I think.
Yeah, I think you would be surprised. Like, we have teams in the second division in Egypt, we have teams in Morocco, I have teams in Brazil, in Peru, and they have all like data scientists. In Mexico, I have a organization group that has mathematicians from one of the best universities in Mexico, and like they're doing these investments and they're hiring these people because they know that they can get some edge from the data. So there's definitely value in that, and that also comes back again to the communication, as in we're hiring all these people. How can they build a communication into the not very mathy people?
Yeah, I think a good example of this we can use is analyzing playing styles, and we'll often think of a playing style of a game model as something that's a little bit abstract, something that comes from the coach's brain, but actually the data does quite a good job at identifying stylistic trends. And we often have conversations where we speak to a club for the first time and we'll be able to tell them quite quickly how they play and say, oh, have you watched us? And, well, no, never. But the data does actually a good job of showing that sort of information.
Yeah, definitely. I think I love when I have a call with a customer because of the time difference and because we cannot watch that much football. I cannot watch them play, or when I'm finding a player about that team, it's just like I just look at the data and it's literally 5 minutes, and then you can see exactly what was the style of play, how did they play, if they had many chances in that game, if they were lucky or unlucky. So yeah, it is amazing being able to just save so much time just looking at the data and being able to have a conversation.
Something else we've seen is that it's not just for people who have a high amount of knowledge and expertise in data. People have been able to use data analysis just to start gaining an edge, and there's definitely been a trend of people starting from the bottom and implementing those points slowly.
Yeah, I spoke about like the mathematicians and PhDs and stuff, and we know, for example, City, Liverpool, they have astrophysics, they have like these people working in football, but you don't have to be one to just use data. I have been working with a lot of women's clubs, and of course they don't have the budget or the resources to get this type of profile. Hopefully it's changing now, but of course sometimes they use the video analyst, and the video analyst is the one that starts using the data, and that helps them save so much time. So there's definitely a market for everybody. Like, we speak with people from all around the world, and we can see how there's very different data aspects to it.
Yeah, would you be able to tell us a little bit more about what you've seen in women's football?
Yeah, for sure. I think women's football is something that everybody knows is growing so much, and because that's also growing in the data part, I've seen and speak with many different people. Sometimes it's just one person doing all the roles, so they have to do recruitment, video analysis, data analysis. They're doing everything, really. So data has come to save their lives, and actually put some time into the data is going to save them so much more time doing the video stuff. Also get a lot of insight from it. I had a message from a German club in the women's side. They were in 2nd division last season. They were in 1st division this season, and they said, like, we scored our first goal of the season in the 1st division because we saw where the keeper was getting scored more. So then we practiced that in training, and then we scored. And like, receiving those type of emails is amazing for us. I really, really enjoy knowing that it's helping, and the data is just taking an edge in the women's game specifically.
Yeah, I think that's a great example again, and it shows there's a little bit of a lesson here, that even just by starting with small elements of data and add them to an existing video process can be a really effective way to start using data, build that trust with different stakeholders across the club, and we will often see some results fairly quickly. And I think today we also have a good community of people in football interested in data, and people see that, and there's definitely opportunities to self-train and improve yourself, even though you don't necessarily come from that data background as such. And it's always great when you see people who have traditionally a video analysis background moving more and more into data because they identify where that can help them and their team. So yeah, just to wrap up, so we've identified problems around time, communication, keeping it real, and these are problems that clubs face everywhere in the world, regardless of their level in data analysis. And regardless of investment, whether it's high level or you just started, there's definitely ways you can use data analysis to start gaining an edge.
Yeah, so thank you so much for coming. If you have any questions, we're going to be around. You have our emails, and you can also find us on LinkedIn. I think being able to talk to every analyst and even sporting directors, even coaches from all around the world, has given us a very good example of what's needed in every club and how every club works, because there's no one fit for all. Every club works differently. So hopefully we got to a little bit of a summary in that. So thank you very much.